So, yeah. So we're doing Parshat Chayei Sarah, and we're doing it from the perspective of Hasidic stories, which give us a deeper insight and give us an opportunity for another kind of discussion. And at every end of every story, everybody's welcome to throw in their ideas. So the first story is like this. You have to open your heart. Like, don't think about it only logically. Think about it from your heart, okay? So it's called The Pope is Pregnant. And it's about Rabbi Israel of Rojin, who lived about 200 years ago. And it's about the passage in this Parshat Shavua that says, "Vayusam lefanav le'echol, vayomer lo ochal ad im dibarti dvarai, vayomer daber." So it's when the food was put in front of Eliezer, and he's like saying, "I'm not going to eat until I speak up." Okay, so one time there was like a little farbrengen between Reb Mordechai of Chernobyl, like a little gathering, a spiritual gathering, between Reb Mordechai of Chernobyl and Rabbi Israel of Rojin. And a request came in, an email came in, I'm just kidding, 200 years ago, of a woman who was having trouble giving birth. And both of them started arguing which one of them is going to do a pidyon nefesh, which is this kind of Jewish ritual that you give a tzedakah to a rabbi and he prays about you. The idea is not that he needs the tzedakah. The idea is that you need to give something of yourself to bring down a spiritual fixing into your life. So each one of them were arguing which one is going to be the one, and they gave respect to each other as if the other one has the more power to open up the gates of heaven for her. And so finally they came to a conclusion, and the Rojina Rebbe started telling the story. And the story goes like this. He says, there was once upon a time a situation in a town called Reem where all the priests were sitting together and learning basically Christianity. And there was one girl there who was very knowledgeable in Christianity, and she was like, she also wanted to be a part of it. So she dressed up as a man, and she joined them. Forever thinks that Judaism is the most chauvinistic religion, and she dressed up as a man and joined them, and started studying with them. And when the head of the priest died, they were looking for somebody to switch for him. And they took this woman who was dressed as a man because she was the most knowledgeable one and made her into the Pope. And one thing led to another. And somehow she got pregnant. And it was time for her somehow. And she was ready to give birth. And that day that she was feeling that the birth was coming really, really close, there was a big gathering, and she was supposed to speak there. But she felt like she was really giving birth, and she really didn't know what to do. Anyway, from one thing to the other, she gave birth in front of these bunch of people, and everybody were like completely shocked. And from that time on, they decided that whoever wants to be the Pope, you need to first check if they're a male or a female. When he finished telling the story, he said, "Mazel tov, mazel tov," and he said to the husband who was there waiting for his wife to give birth, said, "You can now go home. Your wife just had a baby boy." So then later, the Reb Mordechai of Chernobyl said to him, "Isn't that kind of a weird way to make miracles in the world? So to make miracles through fairy tales?" And the Rebbe of Rojin answered, "I promise you that it's It's not even that I told the story. Anybody who would tell that story would create a miracle. So, and he asked him, so where did you take this idea from of making miracles through stories? And the Rishon Rebbe said, I took it from the Torah, from Eliezer, who said, put the food, and but then he said, I will not eat the food until I will speak my words. And as the servant of Abraham, I am. And by telling his story, he basically turned the food into holy food. So, where does it touch you? Or I'll say a few words first, and then you can throw in your ideas. So, so basically, all of Yiddishkeit is built on stories. We're storytellers. The whole Torah is a story, stories, right? And then later on, we see like there's the Reb Nachman stories, there's the Baal Shem Tov stories, there's the Hasidic stories in general. And stories touch us in a place where information doesn't. Because as human beings, we're created from both intellectual and emotions. And when we tell a story, like a parable, for example, right? Sometimes you want to touch your child with like some kind of a change in their lives, right? So you can preach to them as much as you want. But if you tell them a story, especially about yourself, of how, this or that touched your life, right? Then it touches them in a totally different way. And same with all of us adults, not just with our children, right? When we tell a story, we touch each other on a different chord in our hearts, and it just penetrates us in a different way. So like sometimes it's like really, really hard to believe in miracles, right? But then you tell a story, and all of a sudden you're like, that's the kind of a miracle I need, right? And all of a sudden you're like, if they had that miracle, maybe that kind of a miracle can happen or that level of a miracle can happen in my life too, right? And when you're like in that place of like, so like living on an intellectual realm and so not living on a spiritual realm where you allow yourself to think beyond, and you only like kind of ground yourself in this world where everything has to match, all the math has to match, all the ideas, all the conclusions that we come to from the previous events of our lives. And it's kind of hard for us to think out of the box. A story creates a totally different perspective of life.
This story opens me up to the understanding of where the woke culture got this notion that man can have babies.
Okay. Now, Arnold Schwarzenegger already had babies. Remember that movie? Anybody? No? They had that movie with Arnold Schwarzenegger. Yeah. He was the first one. Yeah.
I don't know who said it, but what comes from the heart enters the heart, and that stories are a real vehicle for entering a person's heart.
Right. Basically. Yeah.
I still have trouble connecting with the Pope and with this lady.
With the
having a
baby.
There
It's a
was
little-
a
it's a-
female pope.
It's a little
Yeah.
far-fetched for me. It's just,
Uh-oh.
There was a female pope?
Yes,
Yeah,
there was.
Yeah, there was.
Yes.
Did he disguise or
Do you remember
No.
you
when?
knew she was female?
I don't have any details, but I know there was a female.
Do you remember when?
No, but
No.
somebody can Google that.
Okay, yeah, I'm sure we can Google that later.
For me, stories relate to the power of the word and the weaving through time. So a story that was told 200 years ago is woven with words, and that we, as Jewish people, have access to that in that tapestry.
right? Yeah, totally. It's like we used to have that kind of, we used to live in chamulas, right? You know what chamulas are in Hebrew?
Groups or
Groups, right? We used to live with our grandmothers and our great grandmothers, or, at least our mothers, whatever, and have our babies with our mothers and grandmothers. And the stories would go on, and the kitchen was such a vibrant place, and right. And now we're all kind of living in the phones, ordering in, right? There's like, but I'm not talking about the kitchen and the idea, but I'm talking more about like, where do we have the chance of actually make that um, tapestry that you're talking about, like of like connecting to, what we can learn from the past, and the Torah, and the whole Jewish library basically gives us that opportunity to understand the past and make more ideas of the present and the future, right? Yeah.
sorry, still have difficulty why he's if Eliezer was making the food holy, by sanctifying the food by telling his story first, getting his mission accomplished before he eats. I would have probably chosen just about any other story except a pregnant pope. I really don't get it.
So think about it this way, okay? Maybe I'll tell you my story in a minute also to connect it to that. Think about it this for a minute. Like, a situation happens in your